Hey everybody, we're back here Inside the Ropes, and I'm joined by a former member of maybe kind of still a member of Hit Row, just not in WWE. It is Mr. AJ Francis. I feel like he can kick the shit out of me at any point. Top Dolla is another name that he has went by. How are you today?
I'm good. You know what I'm saying? I'm glad to be here. We've had a lot of talks on the internet, and I don't own that name, so feel free to call me Frank. You know what I'm saying? So we're cool with it.
Yeah, we're good. Now I don't know. I can cut this out, but I don't know if you remember how we met. So I'm just going to tell the story for people. So we're in New Orleans for WrestleMania weekend, and I don't know if it was the Raw after or if it was one of those shows. And I was with Molly Spartan, the pro wrestler, and there was these guys. I don't even know what they were shouting or what match it was they were shouting at, but they were just like real assholes, like
real wrestling fan assholes that you usually see at a show that go out of their way to try to make the show about them instead of the people performing in the ring. And even then, as a fan, before I ever got into WWE, or this is 3 years before I even started wrestling, when I was still in the NFL, I told that dude that we could go settle this outside if you really wanted. Like,
that was it, because he did not take me seriously whatsoever. He was just like, nah. And then Molly was trying nothing, and then you just stood up, said 3 words, and the guy never spoke again. So you were doing God's work that day. I appreciate you. You saved that.
I've always been the one that's willing to put people in their place when they get too big for their britches.
You're still doing it now. So right, so that was 2018. I met you there. We became kind of pals on social media. And then all of a sudden in 2020, you've signed with WWE. So, and you were in the NFL before, we should mention. And how did you go from being in the NFL to, I'm going to get into wrestling, not as a fan, but as a wrestler?
So really what happened was my boy, Mike Busey, who is the owner of the Sausage Castle and the owner of Sausage Castle Wrestling, he has these weekend-long parties. He's having one this weekend for St. Patrick's Day. Once a month, he has like these weekend-long parties where he has his fans and subscribers to his website come and party with him at his crazy mansion party all weekend, right? And he puts on different events like flag football and sometimes video games and basketball and like hot dog eating contests and all types of crazy stuff, right? So one of the things that he puts on is a wrestling show. So he was just like, hey, man, what would you think about coming out and doing a wrestling show? Mind you, I'm a free agent in the NFL. I had just finished the preseason with the Giants, which at the time I didn't know would be the last that I played in the NFL. I was still training to get back in. And like, just come do this show, we'll have you on the show. And I debuted in the first match, just a squash match. And then I won the Battle Royal in the main event to be the new #1 contender, right? So then I go to the back with the guys, and guys that were in the match with me, they were like, man, like, where's your home promotion? And I'm like, oh no, bro, this is my first match. And they're like, oh, that's crazy. Like, so where you been training? And I'm like, nah, man, I haven't been training. I've been wrestling a fan my whole life. Like, I played the NFL. Like, I know how this is supposed to look. I'm really athletic and coordinated. Like, this was just my first time doing this. They were like, wait, you just did all that and you ain't never done this before? You ain't never been trained or nothing? And I was like, nah, man. They were like, yo, I'm not going to tell you how to live your life because, you're a free agent in the NFL, but you should probably give wrestling a real try. And I was like, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, I always wanted to wrestle anyway. And I always knew that I was going to do that after I got out of the NFL. So I literally told myself, I was like, why am I blocking my blessings? And like a week later, I called Team 3D Academy, which is now the Devon Dudley Academy, in Florida. And I was like, hey, I want to start training up. And they were like, all right, we got a spot, come in 2 weeks. And 2 weeks later, after that, I started training. And 6 months after that, I had my tryout with WWE because I always knew I would get a tryout because I played in the NFL. Like, if you were a professional athlete, like now they're giving contracts and tryouts to any college athlete that wants it. But before, it wasn't that easy for people to get those opportunities. But if you played professionally, it was, right? So all you had to do was ask somebody. So, it was funny because, like, as I'm training, the Page movie comes out, right? And the Page movie comes out, and I have a friend of mine named Justin Leslie who used to work social media for NXT and now works social media for Hard Rock Casinos. And he was like, yo, I got an extra ticket to the NXT private screening of the Page movie. Do you want to come? And I was like, sure, yeah, sounds like a good time. Like, not going like, I'm going to find somebody that gets me a tryout, right? So, like, because I already had a trial lined up in July at that point. And we go, and I go to the event, and Matt Bloom walks in. And Justin goes, hey, you should go talk to Bloom. Tell him, you know, you've started training, tell him who you are and all that, da, da, da. And me and Bloom have maybe a 5-minute conversation. He's like, send me an email tomorrow. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I send him an email. So mind you, I already have a trial lined up for July at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I send him, this is March. I send him an email, or maybe February, either way. I send him an email with all the information he asked for at like 10 a.m. the next day. At 11 a.m. that same day, he emails me back and says, you got to try out in April, right? So the crazy part that a lot of people don't know is that between when I got confirmed that my tryout had been moved up to April and the actual tryout, I actually got calls from my agent to go back to the NFL to play with the Raiders and the Browns. And I turned them down because I knew, like, I saw the writing on the wall of what I could do, because I was already doing the row, which evolved once I got to WWE to Hit Row. So I already had this idea of the wrestling record label faction. As you can see, I'm in this is the studio in my house. Right? So that's not a gimmick. That's I was already doing that. So I knew the concept that I had, and I knew how big it could be. So I literally was like, nah, I'm cool. I'm gonna stick with wrestling. And then obviously I get the tryout, kill the tryout. 6 months later, I'm hired.
And I mean, do you think, because I guess that if you're a athlete of some kind, whether it's MMA, NFL, whatever, does that give you an advantage from the perspective of you physically?
Yes. I mean, wrestlers get mad when I say this all the time, but professional wrestling, at least for me, because I'm big, I'm not a 5'7", 155-pound cruiserweight, right? I am 6'5", 360 pounds in real life, right? So like when on TV, I'm 6'9", 400, right? So like I don't have to do much in the ring. So because of that, like to me, wrestling is way easier than football, because in football, I was a lineman. So if I play 60 snaps, that's 60 consecutive times that I got to go to physical guerrilla warfare with another grown man just as big as me. And if somebody dies, they die. Oh, well. Right? But in wrestling, like, I don't really have to do much. I don't have to punch you more than once. I don't have to do more than just slam you once, walk around, get my heat, right? I don't have to keep going and I don't have to bump. Like if I have a bump with 95% of if I have a match with 95% of wrestlers in the business, 95% of them, like, you're not going to bump me more than 2-3 times max in the whole match. So like it's a lot easier for me than it is for smaller guys in the business, but especially when you compare it to playing D-line in the NFL, it's not even close. Like my body, wrestlers would think I was crazy when I would say my body feels better wrestling than it ever felt playing football.
But I mean, because it's interesting you say that about, you know, if you're in a match, you might only take 2-3 bumps from smaller guys. And I don't mean this in a bad way, but you tend to find that people who are coming into wrestling newer, even if they're big guys, they just bump all the time.
Yeah, and I did. When I was on the indies, I did bump all the time, because when I first started wrestling, like, I just wanted to go out and have the best match on the card. Like, I didn't care about protecting my size. I didn't care about none of that. Because to me, like, being real, to me, all this shit is fake. Like, everything is make-believe. I don't think that any person that I've had a match with ever, or that I probably will have a match with in the future, can actually kick my ass, except for, like, you know, the Brock Lesnar's and Bobby Lashley's and Matt Riddle's of the world, like professional trained fighters. Like, if you're not in that category, I don't think that you can actually whoop my ass. So just the fact that we're in the ring and we're acting like you can, I'm willing to do anything. But when I got to WWE, they really put it in my mind about protect your size. And it's not just protecting your size, it's protecting your body. Like, yeah, I can bump 10 times in a match, but if I only got to bump 3, then that's only 3 bumps I got to take. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's like, as opposed to, that's how you extend your career. You know what I'm saying? Everybody has a limited number of bumps that they get. Yeah. And, you know, if you can stretch them out longer, then, you know, these are the things that I learned while I was in WWE. Because when I was in the Indies, oh man, if you go look at my videos when I was in the Indies, I was doing over the top rope taker dives to concrete floors and basketball floors and all types of crazy shit. And to be honest with you, if the match is big enough and it's a moment big enough, I'm still willing to do that. Like, as you saw when I was in WWE, when Swerve won the North American title, I crashed through the barricade and did the flip over the railing. Like, I'm willing to do crazy stuff and take crazy bumps because I know in my matches, I don't really have to.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so you get to WWE and you see you've got the idea for the record label concept. Mm-hmm. How do you make that come to fruition when you get there?
So when I first get to WWE, I know that Lio Rush makes music. I know that Swerve makes music. So I actually, from the beginning of when I get there, I want to make what now everybody knows as Hit Row, but at the time it was called Dolla Row. I want to make it with Swerve and Leo. Mm-hmm. Leo gets released and then Swerve is doing his own thing. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do my own thing. And I just started focusing on me. And I was using the character Frank, which is what I was using on the Indies and what's my rap name, like I was using that behind the scenes in the PC. And then one day, Ryan Katz, who used to work in creative in WWE, comes up to me and goes, hey, Frank, or he sends me a text and says, hey, Frank, what do you think about working with Tahuti and Brianna? And at the time, they didn't say like doing a record label thing. It was just like us coming together as a crew, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm like, yeah, it's a great idea. I like the idea. Tahuti's a good-looking brother. He can actually work, and he's a smaller guy, so we have a good dichotomy in what we do. And then Brianna's obviously a beautiful woman, and that never hurts to have right next to you when you walk out through the curtain. So, and she's a badass that can talk her ass off, you know what I'm saying? So, like, I'm like, this is great. So then I tell them, I'm like, look, I tell Tahuti and Brianna, I'm like, look, I was doing this record label faction on the Indies. Brianna, you're actually a rapper. So this is perfect. Tahuti doesn't do anything with music, but I was like, we can pretend you're the producer because I really produce everything anyway. And just be like, look, Tahuti's the producer, we're both rappers, and we're a crew, and we call ourselves the Hitmakers, right? Mm-hmm. So we do the Hitmakers behind the scenes for like a year, right? Waiting for the opportunity. And it wasn't until WWE's Most Wanted Treasures was about to debut when there was more of a push to like, all right, he's been here for a year and a half, let's get him on TV, right? Mm-hmm. Because I had already, the other TV show was about to drop on A&E. So, about 2 weeks before we end up debuting, Triple H brings me and Swerve aside in the PC and goes, what do you guys think about working together, right? So then like Swerve joining our crew, and then we end up changing the name to Hit Row because obviously they want to be able to own the rights to it, and which they still do. And so like Swerve joins the crew, and he's in the middle of the feud with Leon Ruff. So, that's going to have a big blow-off match, and what better way to debut me than catching Leon Ruff off the ladder and giving him my finish on the barricade, right? So like we debut that way, and then next thing you know, we're off to the races. And it never my biggest like proud moment about everything we did with Hit Row is there was never a bad segment. You can't look at a match or a promo or anything we did and be like, oh well, they could have did that. Every single time you're like, man, those guys are good. Like, and it's not just because of me, it's because all 4 members, like I said this in other interviews before, when people ask me, well, what do you think about Swerve leaving you guys and not working with you guys anymore, doing a solo thing? I'm like, Swerve was a singles wrestler for 13 years before he joined Hit Row. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was doing his own thing for his whole career. Like, I'm happy for him. He wants to do his own thing. Go out and do your own thing. None of us needed Hit Row. All 4 of us could have been singles competitors easily. Mm-hmm. That's what made Hit Row so dope, is because you had 4 people that knew how to entertain, 4 people that knew how to work, 4 people that knew how to promo. That's very rare in factions. A lot of times factions are put together because there's 1 or 2 guys that can do the heavy lifting in each one of those categories.
Yeah, for sure. And then I guess, because the weird thing is, like, you guys were almost the whole of the Hit Row, experience was almost the last hurrah of NXT, of what NXT used to be. You guys were one of the last projects that were like, here's one of the hits.
And I think NXT 2.0 is the direct correlation to what we did in the old NXT. Like, NXT was heavy metal, dark, which is what made Hit Row so cool, because we were a complete contrast of what you usually see. Yeah. And now everything on NXT 2.0 is hip hop and bright and a lot of characters, and you know what I'm saying? So like, I feel like we were not just the last of the old NXT, but we were the bridge to the new NXT.
And I mean, with Triple H, how was he in terms of letting you guys do your own thing, letting it, because Hit Row felt very authentic. It didn't feel like it was like, here's the scripted promo. I mean, was that an easy process for him to kind of let you guys do what you want to do?
Triple H, to his credit, never tried to do anything other than be like, I'm gonna have the camera pointing at you here, right? So like, he like, I've said this before, but we the first debut promo that we did, right? Where all of us are in the ring and I'm in red and I do the whole, from the NFL to A&E to Double XL magazine, that whole promo. Earlier, one of the producers had like wrote up like a kind of a script they wanted us to say, and like was like, you can change it however you want, you know what I'm saying? Da-da-da. And then after we changed it up a little bit, we sent it to Triple H, and Triple H was like, who wrote this? And we were like, well, the producer wrote it, but we added our flavor to it. He's like, nah. He like got in all of the producers' ass, like, yo, do not write nothing for them. Let them do what they want. Let them say what they want, because we can't tell them how to be young, hip, Black performers and talk the way that they need to talk as a record label, right? Like, none of us know how to do that. So like, Triple H from the very beginning of Hit Row let us go and let us do our thing, and let us, literally all they would say is, yo, this is the finish, or here's the angle I'm gonna be shooting from. Make sure that you're looking here at the right time. Like, as far as like how we presented ourselves, our promos, how we put our matches together, any of that, like, he let us do whatever we wanted. And that's why it was so successful, because like I said, we had 4 stars in the group. We didn't just have like me carrying it, or Swerve carrying it, or Brianna carrying it, or Tootie carrying it. Nobody had to be carried, because everybody could hold their own weight. And because of that, it showed. Whenever we would come out and we would get 45 seconds for a promo backstage, and then for the next 20 minutes, the whole crowd's chanting Hit Row during commercial. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are things that not just I heard happen, but Beth Phoenix would come up and be like, man, they're chanting Hit Row the whole show, And like, Beth Phoenix was one of the first people that really saw what we had, and so was Wade Barrett. Like, because they were out there in the crowd every night during commercial when people were chanting Hit Row. So they were like, yo, these guys really got something here. And it was because they really just let us do our own thing. And granted, as my nana say, everybody ain't able. Not every wrestler is able to curate their own persona and come up with witty lines for their promos. Like, some people need more help than others. But when you have a group that doesn't need any help and you let them go, you see what can happen.
Yeah, and I guess that, because you said it earlier, but NXT used to be heavy metal dark, and then you guys came in and were just like the anomaly that were completely different. So, there's always this kind of internet, rumorville about, people who are in NXT, when they go to the main roster, it all changes. They have to start again or whatever. So when you guys get called to SmackDown, I know people were very excited to see what you guys were going to do, because you guys were going to be such a different part of that show. You were fresh. What was the transition like for you guys to go to SmackDown? Was it easy? Did it feel like starting again? Did it feel like continuing on when you initially got there?
No, I mean, the transition was easy. I just think they didn't have any plans for us. Like, we got over so fast that they had to call us up, because if you were going to call up anybody from NXT at that time and you didn't call up Hit Row, like, are you even paying attention to what's happening on the show? Like, so like, if there was one main roster ready act on NXT, you're like, which one can go? It's Hit Row, right? So like, because of that, I feel like they had to call us up, but then at the same time, they didn't have any plans for us. Like, the transition was easy. Like, we were still writing our own promos. We already knew everybody in the back, so we were being cool with them. Like there was no, like, we would have conversations with Roman and the New Day and Cesaro and Sheamus and all these guys that I had already met and already knew from other times. Even before I got to WWE, I had met all these guys because when, like I said, when you're in the NFL, you get certain access to WWE that other people don't get, right? So like I had been going to shows and meeting these guys, and like Roman and Titus O'Neil came when I was in DC playing on the now Commanders. That's not what they were called back then. Like they came to the weight room and I worked out with them in the weight room while I was on the team because they had a show in DC. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
Like I've known these guys for a while, so the transition was easy. The only problem was they didn't have plans for us, and you could tell by just like we debuted, we beat up some jobbers. Then the next week we went against. We had a backstage segment with the New Day, right? And then Xavier had pitched this idea to us that he told us that he pitched to them, where like we help him because he changed his entrance music, right, when he became King Xavier. So where he pitched this idea that like Hit Row helps him make his new entrance music. Like we probably wouldn't actually help, but it was like in storyline, which would lead to either a feud with the New Day or like getting the rub from the New Day during a feud with somebody else. And then the very next week they're like, all right, you guys are going to go work with Sami Zayn. We're like, oh, okay. Well, that's not what we thought we were doing, but that's awesome. Like I love Sami Zayn. Like, and Sami was great to work with. And it was funny. Perfect example of how good Sami is to work with is the fact that like we said. Like I said, we wrote up our promos, and I don't even remember what the line was that I was ending my promo with, but like it's my first promo with Sami Zayn, and I have a lot of respect for him, so I don't want to end it by saying Sami sucks, right? Like I just out of respect for Sami Zayn, I don't want to do that. I've been a Sami Zayn fan for 10 years, you know what I'm saying? So like out of respect for him, I didn't want to do that. And so I had a different line at the end, and Sami, to his credit, was like, well, what if you end it with Sami sucks and then everybody starts chanting Sami sucks? Like, that's a great idea, Sami, even though in the back of my mind, I'm like, I should have did that from the beginning. Like, like it was so like we did it, and then the whole crowd started chanting Sami sucks at the end of the promo, and it worked exactly like we wanted it to. And I'm like, all right, cool. So now I'm gonna be in a feud with Sami Zayn. That's awesome. I thought we were gonna do the New Day, but now we're going Sami Zayn. Either one's cool. I'm cool with both of those. And then the very week they're like, all right, well, you're gonna do something with gender this week. And I was like, okay, well, there's no real direction. Like it's just week by week. There's no plan or direction of what we're actually doing. It's just you're with this person this week, you're with this person this week, you're with this person this week. But we're still like, all right, cool, gender former WWE champion, that's a good spot. You know what I'm saying? He's got a tag team partner. That's a good, easy way for us to mix in tag team matches. This will be fun. And then the week after that, we got released. So it's like there was never really a plan set in place. And that's what I think was the biggest problem. The transition itself was fine.
And in terms of, when you're in NXT, I guess Triple H is the boss. He's the guy you go to. He's the guy that's kind of giving you the overall picture of what you're doing. When you get to SmackDown, is it Vince McMahon that's giving you that, or is it more you're working with the team?
It's you still got writers. Johnny Ace is doing a lot of stuff. A lot of times we go through Johnny Ace. Vince is running a $1 billion corporation, so he's got other things in mind. So like there's a lot more hats that people are wearing on the main roster. There's a lot more, people that have something to do with the product that's going on the main roster. When on, NXT, I would text with Triple H, or the producer of whatever segment we were doing would text us, and that would be our entire contact. You know what I'm saying? Like we didn't have to do anything else. So it's a little disjointed on the main roster. Just if you're new, like if you don't know who to go to, and like if you've been there for a while, obviously you can go right to the faucet if you want to. But like there's different, like everybody has different ideas for what you should be doing with not just your character, but with your free time and every other thing on the main roster. Everybody is trying to impress somebody, honestly, I think, on the main roster. And it's less about what each individual character or group in our sense is going with forward, and more about what is going to happen this week.
Yeah. And I mean, then obviously b-fab gets released and you stuck up for her, which is such a commendable thing to do. And especially kind of in your position, because you're newer, it's a bigger risk for you to sort of speak up. I mean, and then obviously not long after that, you guys get released. Looking back on it now, is there anything that you would have done differently at any point, or are you good with how you sort of dealt with everything?
There's nothing I would have done differently. Brianna helped me and Swerve and Tahuti create something that has never been done before and will never be done again and can't be replicated. So like I felt when I found out that somebody that I had worked with for over a year at this point to create something brand new that had never been seen before in professional wrestling history. And I found out that she got released once my plane landed on Twitter. Like, that pissed me off, as it should piss off anybody. Like, as it pissed off a lot of wrestling fans. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I didn't understand why she was released. And so I wanted to find out why. And if that makes me hard to work with, then I'm willing to stand up for people that I work with. If that makes me an asshole because I'm willing to say, yo, this ain't right. Like I'm not saying you got to release. I'm sure it's a business. You got to release somebody. You want to try to save money, okay? But like, she just got here. Y'all haven't even given her a chance to show anything. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, not to mention she works her ass off and she's good. And as far as like, I mean, there's a lot of girls that can promo, but how many girls can do the rap cool promos like she do? You know what I'm saying? Like, so I felt the need to stand up for her because B is like my sister. And if that makes me hard to work with, then I'm just hard to work with, because I would have did the same thing if they released Swerve. I would have did the same thing if they released Tahuti. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would have did the same exact thing, because that's just who I am. I'm not going to, Malcolm X has a quote. He says, "You not to be so blind with patriotism that you can't see what's right. Wrong is wrong, no matter who says or does it," right? Yeah. So that's how I felt. I felt that her being released was wrong. And if that's the reason that I got released, then of all the reasons I can get released, that's a hell of a good one. So, I mean, I'm always going to stand up for my people. I always have. I always will. And it's not just people that I work with. It's people in my community. That's why that same weekend we got released, I thought it was hilarious. All these reports talking about, oh, well, he's difficult to work with. He has character issues and all these different things. Meanwhile, I'm at a literal canned food drive to feed homeless children in my hometown that many people had the opportunity to help me with, and nobody did. Right? So when I hear the things that people say about me, I'm like, okay, you're just talking out the side of your ass. You don't know anything about me. You don't know anything about the situation. I can stand 10 toes down and say that I am proud of everything that I did, because at the end of the day, nobody helped us create Hit Row. Nobody helped us come up with any of the ideas that we did on screen. We all did that by ourselves. There's so many, like I said earlier, there's so many different people that aren't able to create on that level that get so much more of a leash for some of the so much worse things. Like there's so many wrestlers in the world that have done way worse things than stand up for somebody they work with, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's so many things I know that way worse things, way worse.
Way worse things.
Yeah, people who are idolized, way worse things. But anyway, but I mean, so when you find out that you got released, do you think it was a direct response to the situation, or do you think it was a coincidence? Like, or how did you feel when you found out?
Well, I was pissed off. Obviously, I didn't understand. I felt like that money was thrown away. Like I've been making money my whole life. Well, not my whole life. I was broke till I got to the NFL, but since 2013, I've been making money in various different ways, whether it be football, music, acting, commercials, licensing deals, sponsorships, all types of stuff. People like when we got released, I just didn't understand what the thought process was, because there was an opportunity to not just create something that had never been done, but give a certain subsect that has never, ever, ever been focused on an opportunity to see something in their culture that is genuine and real, right? So like, even within Hit Row, and I'm not talking about Black culture, there's Black wrestlers and Black culture all the time. I'm talking about hip hop culture, right? Why do you think Scott Hall just passed away? Why do you think West Side Gun was so hurt? Why do you think Wale has made songs using his beat? Why do you think I made a song using his entrance music? Because wrestling and hip hop have always been so intertwined to people that are in both cultures, right? Mm-hmm. There's just a lot of people that are just on one side or the other and don't realize how intertwined they are. That's why you've got guys like Offset making songs about Ric Flair, and he ain't never seen Ric Flair in NWA. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Right, like there was an opportunity to reach a group of people that had never been spoken to directly, right? And not only just with how we did it, but within each character, there was a different group of people. Like myself, I'm talking to the streets. I'm talking to, like, if I can relate it to hip hop, like, I don't know how much people on your that follow you know a lot about the hip hop game today, but you got guys like Griselda who are just the street rappers that are real lyrical, that talk about real street life. Like that was the niche that I was on. Then you got Brianna's the pretty girl that's talking about the girl aspect of hip hop, which is huge now in hip hop. It hasn't always been, but right now it's huge, right? Then you got Swerve, who's like the backpack conscious skateboard rapper, and he's talking about things that relate to that. And then you got Tahuti, who's the pretty boy, who's talking to the fashion side of hip hop culture. You know what I'm saying? So like, there was so much we could have done, and when I got released, I genuinely feel like I said, I feel like they didn't have a plan for us. Like by releasing Hit Row, you could save close to $2 million, right? Mm-hmm. Now people say, well, they got record breaking money they've been making, and all this quarter they made all much money. Yeah, but if anybody who runs businesses will tell you, if you got a way to free up some capital to spend it on something you got to spend it on anyway, a la, let's say, Brock Lesnar coming back, right? If you can free up a couple $1 million and you got to pay Brock Lesnar, and Brock Lesnar is absolutely at this point in his career a bigger draw than Hit Row, then you got to do what you got to do. Like I wasn't mad at the business aspect of it. I just felt like it was an opportunity wasted. And like I said, but like, I mean, just on conversations I've had with people, like, I'm not sure that I'm never coming back. Like, I'm pretty sure one day, whether it be, I don't know, it could be tomorrow, it could be in 10 years, but eventually I feel like I'm going to be back. Right. And I feel the same way about all the members. So like, at this moment in time, they made a business decision. So now I'm making business decisions, and I'm putting my efforts outside of wrestling, because now I can wrestle anywhere. Like I turn down bookings all the time. I turn down podcast interviews all the time. I turn them down all the time. And I because I don't need to do it. Like I can literally sit in my crib every day and play video games and hang out with my dog and be just fine. Right. I don't need to go out and wrestle and hit the open road. So when you see me at a show, it's because I want to be there. It's because probably somebody who's either booking the show or on the show is a good friend of mine and is like, yo, I'm trying to have you come on this show. And I'm like, all right, cool. You know what I'm saying? Because to be honest with you, for people that I don't really know like that I haven't worked with before, or that I don't have a mutual friendship / respect with, if you're not trying to book Tahuti and Brianna with me, then I'm not trying to come, because I'm trying to make sure that my people eat. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to make sure that my people are good, because like I said, I've always looked out for my people. And that's why it's funny, the narrative around me, because it's clear that people don't know me. Anybody who actually knows me knows I'm one of the most genuine people that there has ever been. But when you don't know me and you just go off what you see on the internet, cherry picked lines from interviews and cornballs saying one thing or another, then yeah, you're going to feel a certain way about me because you're an internet nobody that has no real insight into the situation.
I mean, you kind of bring me on to the last thing I want to ask you about. This is about 10 questions in one, but you talking there kind of got me thinking. So, that was then with b-fab getting released, and then you guys. Now we're in March. You say that you do the bookings you want to do, you don't do the ones that you don't want to do. In the future, do you want all 4 of you to be back together? Do you want to sort of, I guess, evolve the concept of what it used to be and do something like that? Is that the plan? Is that one of the hopes? In wrestling, what is the idea? What's the plan? Is there a plan?
I mean, honestly, it would be cool for all 4 of us to get back together, but I genuinely don't think that's going to happen. I just strictly off the strength of the fact that, like I said, Swerve was a singles wrestler for a decade before he joined us. Like, we were doing the 3 of us as the Hitmakers for over a year before Swerve got with us. So, like, Swerve is hot. Swerve is just signed with AEW. He's going to get a hell of a push there. He's going to get all the opportunities in the world there, and he deserves them. But, like, he wants to do his own thing, and he's going to do his own thing, and I have no problem with that, and neither does anybody else, because to be honest, we were doing our thing before Swerve joined up with us, right? We already had the plan set to do everything we did with Hit Row before Swerve was added to the crew. Swerve was literally added to the crew 2 weeks before we debuted, you know what I'm saying? So, like, Swerve wants to do his own thing, and I'm happy for him to get his money. I really genuinely am. People want us to be beefing, like, for what? Why would I ever have a problem with somebody saying, I think this is what's best for me? Okay, then do what is best for you, because I'm not feeding your children. I'm not feeding his pig. I'm not paying his bills. I'm not taking care of his family. He got to do that, right? So, like, if he wants to do what he wants to do and be a solo performer, then I'm happy for him. I'm genuinely happy for him. But at the same time, going forward, the record label faction is still intact, because the person who put all the pieces together is right here. The person who came up with all the concepts is right here. The person who wrote the theme song is right here. The person, he recorded it in this studio, right? So, like, and WWE didn't ask us to record a theme song. If it was up to them, we would have just kept coming out to the Swerve's old song. But I said, look, bro, we are a record label. We are rappers. If we don't have our own songs, then we're just like every other corny wrestler in the back that does their own, that pretends to be something that they're not, right? Like, we have to have our own song if we're going to say that we're a record label, because that's what I did on the indies too. My entrance music was my own song, right? So, like, I knew that we had to do that. So I wrote the song, we came and recorded it in my studio, and then everybody's like, this is the greatest theme song I've ever heard. It's like, yeah, because it's genuinely made by us for us. It's not someone else saying, no, I think this would be good. No, it's us putting it all together. So, like, we are still, the Hitmakers are still out here. We still, like I said, we got MCW on March 19th. We got GCW and ROW on April 1st. We got a whole bunch of stuff we're doing WrestleMania weekend. We're gonna be around. We got we got signings at different events, and I think we're gonna have a performance on Sunday at an event as well, and we'll be at Wally Mania. So, like, we're gonna be around. Like,
do you think, is AEW a possibility? I know the Young Bucks thing always comes up when people kind of remember that thing, but I mean, if Swerve's there,
if it's a possibility, man, all they got to do is call us and tell us what they want to do. They ain't done that, so, like, it's not hard to get in contact with us. It's intentional that they're not. Like, I also, and this is just, I'm not, whether it be the Young Bucks or anybody in AEW that has ever said anything about me, I know. When I dropped the Sneaker Diss song, right, it was in an attempt to get over, which happened, by the way. I'd like to point that out. It was something that had never been done in wrestling before, which is what I usually like to do, right? And it was groundbreaking, right? So then that week on Rampage, I think it was, or Dark, You know, Max Caster comes out and says my name on the show, right? So like, I didn't care because, to be honest, I thought it was, for what I did, for that to be the response was kind of weak, right? So like, I didn't care about it. But like when I saw him and Bowens at Mark Henry's pre-revolution party that he had with him and Dave LaGreca, like there was no hostility there. Like as soon as they walked in, they showed nothing but love. Like I know that I understand how wrestling works. It's the fans that pretend that they know everything that don't understand how wrestling works. Like I used an opportunity to get myself over and it worked, right? And because of that, some people were salty. I don't care, right? This is not you in this business. You can make friends or you can make money, right? So like, I'm more than willing to make money doing groundbreaking, never been done before type stuff for any wrestling promotion, not just AEW. But at the same time, it's got to be worth me leaving my house because I can make as much money as I do. I can make just as much money as I do going out doing a booking or a signing, sitting in my house and making a stock trade. So like, it has to be worth me leaving the crib. It has to be worth me finding somebody to take care of my dog. And if it's not worth that, then I'm cool kicking it in the crib, bro. It's just, I'm genuine. I'm at the point in my life where I don't need to prove nothing to anybody. If anybody got a problem with anything that I say or anything that I do, address me. Tell me about it. See, all people like to do is little sneaky jabs and little sneaky lines and all these things. But like when the pressure is brought to their front door, it's never the same energy, right? So like, I am more than willing to sit down and talk to anybody. But if you don't want it, then I like to go, and it's the same thing when I'm talking to a beautiful woman. I want to go where I'm wanted. If I feel like you don't want me, then I don't feel the need to apply pressure to try to go somewhere, because I don't ever want to feel like it's a one-sided arrangement, because then people think that you owe them something. And I don't owe nobody nothing. Like I said, I've done everything myself, from going to the NFL, to all 3 of my albums, to both the nationwide tours that I've been on, to the 28 countries that I've been to every promo I ever wrote, to every match I ever put together, to every move I've ever done. Nobody's ever helped me create any of that. I did it all by myself. So I'm willing to stand by myself and say, I'm cool with who I am. If you're not cool with who I am, then you need to really look at yourself.
Listen, that's probably the best place to leave it. Thanks for being so generous with your time, Frank. Your Twitter handle's on the screen there. People can go check out your music, your wrestling, and everything else that you've got going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope it all goes well WrestleMania weekend. And if there's anything right with the wrestling world, the Hitmakers will be seen somewhere soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, and then like I said, man, it's not the problem isn't us willing to do something. It's just we're not a sideshow. We're a main act, bro. Like we proved it over and over and over and over again. So like, if you are willing to really come up with a plan that we are willing to do and think is worth our time, then we'll be there. And if not, I'll gladly go around the country 2-3 days a month and sign autographs and take pictures and then take my fat ass home.